Metroid is one of Nintendo's biggest franchises to date, but fans of the series have noticed that it doesn't really get a lot of the publicity and recognition it deserves. Now, fortunately, in the last couple of years, the series has been getting some love, like with the release of the latest 2D Metroid, Metroid Dread, and how it was nominated for Game of the Year in 2021. But I believe the series is about to absolutely explode within the next year or so, and here's why. Ever since Metroid's debut in 1986, it's been a pivotal series for Nintendo, and since its release, it's gotten a plethora of amazing titles for the series. There is very obviously the main 2D Metroid games, such as Metroid, Metroid Samus Returns, Super Metroid, Metroid Fusion, and as of more recently, Metroid Dread. These games are what I would consider to be the fundamentals of the Metroid series, so if you haven't played these, then please tell me, what are you doing with your life? Because seriously, if you call yourself a fan of the Metroid series but haven't played these games, then you must reconsider your life choices. These games are jam-packed with incredible 2D platforming and tons of exploration. So seriously, I must reiterate this, if you haven't played these games, get on that. In addition, and more importantly to this video, there's also the Metroid Prime series, which takes everything about 2D Metroid and puts it in a 3D space. This was Samus's big break into the world of 3D, releasing on the GameCube instead of the Nintendo 64, like how many other games got their big break into 3D. The 3D element dramatically increases the creepy and sinister atmosphere of the 2D games, and it just makes the world of Metroid so much more interesting to explore. And it only got better with every passing installment in the series, which is why when Nintendo announced Metroid Prime 4 at E3 2017, fans were absolutely nuts. This announcement was incredible for Metroid Prime fans, and because it was being released on the Switch, tons of new people would be introduced to Metroid. This was a win for all Metroid fans alike. But 2 years of complete radio silence on how development was going on went by. People were utterly confused and wondering if everything was okay. But then, January of 2019, we finally got new information on this game. Unfortunately though, the announcement was that development for this game was completely restarting. And now, after 4 more years of radio silence on anything about this game, we still have nothing. But I believe that I have finally cracked the code on what Nintendo is doing, and why they practically haven't said a word since the game was announced 6 years ago. Here is my theory. Before that though, if you are a fan of Metroid, or just a fan of Nintendo in general, please consider subscribing. It helps out way more than you know. Thanks. Right, so before we talk about Metroid Prime 4, let me just talk about the Metroid Prime series in general for a sec. In February of this year, Nintendo released the Metroid Prime Remaster. People were speculating that they would release a Metroid Prime Remaster trilogy, but this was still monumental for multiple reasons. Reason number 1, it wasn't full price. Usually when Nintendo does remasters of previous games, they make the graphics just that much better so that they can slap a $60 price tag on it and call it a day. Fortunately, this wasn't the case for the Metroid Prime Remaster. This is, without a doubt, one of the most beautiful and good-looking games on the Nintendo Switch to date. So the fact that they sold it for only $40 is mind-blowing. Now, I know what you might be thinking. $40 is still way too pricey for a stupid remaster. This is highway robbery. But I don't think you understand. When Nintendo releases a video game, the standard price is $60. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but Nintendo games never go down in price. In fact, they usually go up in price somehow. If they had priced this game at the usual $60, it would have had such a difficult time selling and getting into people's hands. And that is the most important thing for the Metroid series right now. Number 2, it was shadow dropped. Shadow dropping, a term used to refer to games and other media that are released the same day they are announced, or released without announcements whatsoever. This never happens. Seriously, it never does. Tell me a time when Nintendo just so casually shadow dropped a full first-party game. See? You can't. This type of thing only happens with demos or third-party games, but never with full first-party releases. Because they did this with the first game in the series, it lets us speculate that maybe they'll do it with the other two. Looking at what they did with the release of Pikmin 4 leads me to believe that they'll do the same for Metroid. They released Pikmin 3 Deluxe on Switch, and later on released Pikmin 1 and 2 alongside the release of Pikmin 4. This way, it was easy to experience the full series leading up to Pikmin 4. I speculate they'll do the same for the Metroid Prime series. But instead of releasing Prime 2 and 3 along Prime 4, they'll release them spaced apart in order so people will have easy access to the full series before playing Prime 4. And speaking of Prime 4, Here's my ultimate theory on why they've been delaying it so long. They are going to release it on the next console. Think about it. If people's speculations are correct, the Switch 2, as people are calling it, is slated to be released in late 2024. I feel like they want it to be released on this console because they want it to be much more graphically advanced than any other game they've released to date. Similar to how it felt when the first Metroid Prime game was released on the GameCube. Seriously, if you think about it, 4 years is a long time for a game to be in development without any sort of information or gameplay being released. Unless that game is meant to be released on a not yet revealed console, and revealing any gameplay of such game would reveal way too much information on the capabilities of such a console. Remember a few years ago, closer to Prime 4's restart time? Remember what kept popping up? Tons of news about retro studios hiring people that had previously worked on huge, graphically intense AAA games, like God of War and Tomb Raider. Why would they need to hire these people to work on Prime 4 if they can just so casually employ smaller teams that can somehow put out a remaster of a game that looks better than pretty much every other game on the Nintendo Switch system? And with it releasing on the next console, it gives people plenty of time to experience the first 3 games in the series before having access to Prime 4. I think these remasters are meant to act as a precursor of sorts, a tool to build the hype for Prime 4, so that when it does eventually launch, it's a big title. I believe that Prime 4 will be a launch title for the next console. Yes, you heard me right, a launch title. It's not too uncanny for a huge game like this to be released alongside the console. After all, they did it with Breath of the Wild. I can just imagine watching the first look trailer for the next console and seeing Metroid Prime 4 being one of the main games played in the trailer. So yeah, not a groundbreaking or mind-blowing theory by any means, but it's one I've come to believe as more time passes after the initial restart announcement. It's something that I can just feel at this point. It's like how old people can feel when the rain is coming by how their joints feel or something, but in this case, it's how I know Metroid Prime 4 is going to be released on the next console because of the disappointing lack of absolutely any information on the game. But yeah, comment down below and tell me your theories about Metroid Prime 4 or what you think Nintendo's doing here. There is one thing we know for sure though. This game will be even more groundbreaking than when they revealed Samus to be a female at the end of the first game. Thanks for watching, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.
Bye-bye!